Hi everybody, Mature Simmer here. So yep, you're not dreaming. Generational farming is back. We have got ourselves the ability to get back on here after the revamp. So the only thing, unfortunately, is it's May. So I'm kind of back in the same position I was literally last year. Other than, obviously, we couldn't get certain things done. But we're in the same position. You know, everybody's in the same position. It's not like I just wasn't here. We just all weren't able to get on. But obviously, depending on what people are doing, things might behave a little bit differently. So at this point, I am just going to try to get some mowing done. I am not going to be picking anything up right now because it's actually late. So time's not accurate. It's later than 6:30. Quite a bit later than 6:30. I don't remember exactly where we're at here, but I'll tell you with certainty it's later. Alright, so we're going to turn that on, and we're just going to get going. But what that's going to turn into then is this is going to be another year where unfortunately it's going to be groundhog year. So, because if you recall, last year when I started in May, then to get the full harvest, I'm also then in September, I think, because it'll be June, July. I guess it'll be August. No, wait, yeah, June, July, August. Yeah, I think that'll be it. And then the problem would be it would be September, October, November, and then it's too late. So, so I'm basically going to get 2 cuts done this year again, and that will be it. Just had to pop off and go get my line snapped on the road so that I kind of have the same setup, and then we'll head over. But initially I was actually honestly going to jump on here, record a tiny beginning, and say, hey, I'm going to mow tomorrow, because at this point when I'm off and I know I can only do it twice, I was thinking it would be dark. But since I came in here and saw what the time was, I'm like, alright, I'll hammer it out today, and then that will, you know, I'll have more flexibility, I guess, next time, because if I wait an extra day, it's not like it's going to matter, because I'm only going to get 2 runs done. The biggest challenge, however, is I got silos that are full of product right now, and then, you know, about 65 to 72,000, I think, depending on which one of the 3 silos we're looking at, that is still remaining to be processed, but can't be because we've got our 565,000 liters of silage sitting there, because when things got shut down for the revamp, basically it was September, October, because I think basically I did my cut in September, and then suddenly it was, you know, we're doing the revamp and the servers were not accessible because we didn't have the mods on them. So that's the situation at this point with the servers, but it just kind of, you know, kept me from doing much for nearly 2 weeks, in this area. So I'm going to go ahead at this point and just kind of continue the counting as if we just went to the next spring, not as if I lost an entire year, which in essence is kind of what would have happened, because this is not next May, this is the May after that, is what you're technically looking at if I was to just have been running normally. But I'm not going to skip a year, because I don't think that's how they're going to treat it anyway. And they don't really number them there anyway, but I'm assuming we're still going to be heading off at some point shortly, but we'll see how that all plays out. Because right now, Even if I do that, I think that makes this year 8, where normally it would have been year 9. But, we'll get going. But I'm going to have to sell silage at a real off point of the year here. But once again, I suppose it won't be a huge amount since I'm only doing 2 cuttings instead of 3. But we'll make the best of it, and it'll be what it'll be, and I'll get whatever I get. I don't honestly remember, since it's been nearly 2 weeks, what my dollar amount was. I believe at some point I got over 2.7 million, but I've also done repairs and other things, so I don't think it's like the server was running in the background, but it may have been. I mean, that might be the thing, is the server may have been operating, it's just nobody could log in because we didn't have the right mods and so forth. So it's possible that game-wise we did have a couple years go, or a year and a half go by, or whatever you want to call it. I guess it'd be a year and a half. Because again, we were gone in September, we then waited the whole time, so yeah, it's probably been, honestly, closer to a little bit over 2 weeks, probably getting up to 18 days, 17, 18 days since we've been on last. I mean, you'll be able to tell, other than likely, I don't think I'm going to post this until, I'm not going to work on this video until tomorrow, and then post it sometime tomorrow, because it's just too late to go ahead and do that now. And at this point, again, I need to focus on getting the grass cut. I got the same problem I usually do, where I've got a little bit hanging out now that I've kind of got everything set. So let me come up here, and then we'll go back. This is kind of the normal process. So we'll do that, we'll come back to the beginning, and then we'll be able to just go forward and clean things up that way. Alright, so it's not long enough that I'm going to worry about it. I'm just going to let it go. I could go a few miles per hour faster on where I don't need to mow, but it's by the time I move everything, I'll probably screw something up, not put the mower down in time, and then be dancing around and waste any extra time I would have saved by moving a little bit faster for that tiny bit. So for those who are new to the series, haven't peeked in on generational farming, and are like, hey, what is this thing? Because it's obviously not been there for a couple weeks, 3 weeks, and people might be like, what is this thing? Because, we've gotten a few folks appearing on the channel from other reasons, some new subscribers and stuff, so thanks for that. So if you're checking this out and just kind of want to know what we're doing here, so generational farming runs in FSN, which is Farming Simulator Network, which is a online community where there are a bunch of servers running in real time, so you can see it runs at 1 speed. So time passes on the servers, they're running 24 hours a day. Obviously there's a reboot cycle once a night and so forth. So there's, a few times that it isn't available where you couldn't play, but for the most part consider it available 24/7, and time progresses as such. And so that's what Farming Simulator Network is, and generational farming then is a competition within that community. And so what we are doing here is we are basically trying to get the most net worth at the end after playing through the entire set of generations. And in each generation we move to a new map. This is generation 2, so this is the second generation we have. We're going to have between 7 and 10 generations in total. This started, I think, in December of 2022 is when we began with the first generation. And so sitting here in what is now June of 2023, we're still in the second generation. So you can kind of start to see this is likely going to turn into a multi-year competition. for those of us who stick it out and are there through the whole thing. We've had some people start and pull out. I think they've added people as each generation comes up. They let new ones join. So, and I think you can even join in the midst of it and so forth. It just depends. They'll put out a call. But within a generation can then randomly last between 2 to 10 years. And we're just playing on 12-day cycles. So a year lasts 12 days. So obviously if I go a full 10 years, I'm talking 120 days. So you would get through just 3 generations in a year if they were full-blown years. The first one we went 8 years. This one we're clearly going 8 years at least as well. We're supposed to get a year notice before we're pulled off. So I'm assuming that means we're getting into year 9 since we're sitting here in May of year 8. But that all remains to be seen how that's going to go. Whoops. I thought I hit everything. Why is it moving forward? But I forgot to hit the reverse button. I hit everything but that. Alright, so I normally do 3 headlands. But basically, the competition is just that. You do what you need to do to try to make the most money. I was in 2nd place after the first generation, so my plan seemed to have worked pretty well. It may not work great, but if you've not guessed, my plan is grass and turn that into silage. So I've got 3 fermenting silos that I had the equipment nearby. You may have seen them, you may not, but you will at some point in the series. Won't be in this episode because I'm just over here cutting. I mean, you can see them far away. There they are. But, I've got 3 fermenting silos that turn this into silage, and then I sell that silage. And what I determined pretty quickly is grass is king in this type of competition because of the volume you can get. I can kind of compete with a farm that's running crops that's 10 times my size, and basically make the same amount of profit that they will make, and then obviously have less equipment and all the other costs they're going to have that they'll just never recover because we're only allowed to move 3 pieces of equipment from one generation to the next. So you've got to kind of plan things out. And even if we could move things, while the recovery opportunity would be a little bit better, it's still a deeper hole, and I still think it would be a challenge. So I've always kind of said, if someone outworks me, if they just decide they're going to spend more of their life in here, I can certainly get beat. Because again, if I have someone doing grass that chooses to do double or triple the acreage that I'm mowing, because you'll notice here, I'm not even using my full field because I know the time it takes, I know the time I have to play, and this is still like every mowing cycle between mowing, fertilizing. Speaking of, I don't think I fertilized. Yeah, I didn't. So that's the other problem. We didn't have the opportunity to fertilize because we were locked out of the server right after I mowed, and the next day we couldn't get in. So this will actually be a little bit less, potentially a lot less than I normally have. But what I was saying, the cycles normally mow, collect, fertilize. Obviously I have to do things with lime when it's necessary to do so. I sometimes have to soil sample and so forth. So there's a good amount of work that takes place, and even on a small area like this, which is about 20 acres, is what half of this field is, because my whole field I think is 37 acres. And so I kind of took the bigger portion, kind of split it, and my target has been what it is. I kind of go out as you saw, like 21 rows on the GPS. So at this point, it's just very repetitive every cycle, but it's just the best way that I've found to actually stay competitive. But that's why we're also going from a really dark green to a light green here, because we're losing a good amount of throughput because the grass grew and matured without any fertilizer. But we will fix that before the next mowing. We've got another FM joining in here. So I think we're all happy to be back on. Just a matter of who's going to jump back in. You know, and similarly with crops, production, other things like that other people can try and do. Like I said, if someone wants to run a big operation and wants to spend a lot of time, I think they can certainly do it. But I did take a look. There was an FM on the server here that was trying to do basically what I would call the wool empire, where they had sheep and then I think a cloth mill or whatever it is, and then a tailoring shop, turning the cloth into clothes. And there's limitations on how many things we can have. Only so many animal pens, only so many. You can have like 5 productions altogether. So I think they had 2 tailor shops and 3 mills that were basically kind of trying to keep things running. And even with that, I think they may have been doing a little bit more than me each year, but it wasn't a lot. And I'm not even sure that they were doing more. You know, they've got a good higher balance here right now. They seem to have sold everything off. So I'm not sure what they're doing, or if they're getting ready to withdraw, or what the situation was, because it's not as if we've been told, hey, we're getting ready to move and stop doing something. But either way, so they'll show up whenever we look at that screen. Like they're at 4.6 million right now, but one of the things we can do in generational farming is in between each generation we've got investment options that we can do, and I put a good amount into that after the first generation and really didn't end up on this server with much, and I put more than that into the investments than differentiates us right now. So I would say I'm likely still ahead of them, but they were not the group that was beating me. The FM that's beating me is on one of the other generational servers. And they were beating me by a good amount, but once again, they had a pretty big operation. Probably at least 4 or 5 times my size. They were doing grass as well, and so I would expect they had 4 or 5 times my money. So I'm not expecting, nor am I trying to catch them, because I like to do other things. I like to do other sims. I like to do other things in Farming Simulator. I've got my regular FSN farm that I'm running, and what I've kind of seen is a lot of the folks that are playing here are folks that weren't active in FSN at that point. There's a separate community, or a sister community, that had spun off called Entrepreneurs, which is more kind of a web-based gaming type thing. So it's an entire platform and system custom developed by the people that are responsible for starting and maintaining FSN. And that kind of runs the whole world of economics. You can run trucks there, you can do farms, but not this way. Like, you're not in Farming Simulator, but you can buy land, turn it into farms, and but you're doing it all on a website. So it's kind of a website-based version of something like Civilization or Europa Universalis or something like that, but not graphic or anything like that. It's, think of it more text-based with images and so forth. It's not any kind of gameplay like that. But there's folks that have really taken to that. That's not an area I really participate in a whole lot. I've got 4 trucks I kind of keep running over there. You know, and I've got, I think, $3.5 million over there. The communities were connected before where I could move money back and forth. The decision was made by FSN leadership to not allow that any longer because it was felt like people who weren't doing that it was unfair, because you could generate a pretty good cash flow on the entrepreneur side and kind of then funnel money over here, which would allow you to just really kind of go nuts with the farming if you wanted. And there's definitely people in FSN that had huge empires, and so like some of them that I know, like I think they're doing their farming empires, but they're not participating in generational farming. So, but what that, you know, kind of what I'm getting at with that is, I think the person who is running an operation 4 or 5 times larger than mine, like they're one of those folks that I think do a lot in entrepreneurs and then decided to come back over and play in FSN because of this competition. And so that's all the farming simulator they're doing. And so, I mean, if I took all the hours I do with the VIP series, my other farm and so forth, I could probably do the same thing and be about the same size if 100% of my farming simulator time was here. But while grass pays the bills, it's not incredibly exciting to just kind of keep doing it over and over. So I like the VIP series, for example. I really like the VIP. I mean, I love the VIP series. Let's change the word. I just love using the VIP order manager and so forth. And so I want to spend some of my farming simulator time there, which then dictates what I can do here. So, but that is a very long explanation of what generational farming is and the competition. So what I tend to do with this series, now that we're back online, at least for a bit, because again, when we move, we're usually down for several days, going into a week or more until we're spun up on the next map, is what happened last time. So I'm assuming it's going to be something similar. But when I'm playing, I try to post these videos in real time, being they usually go up the same day and so forth, because of the way this series works in FSN. It's a little bit better that way, where my other farm, Misty Hills, the servers run in real time, but since there's no competition, like if you're seeing that something weeks or months later than when I did it, it doesn't really matter, because there's nothing time-based. Like that's kind of, think of that as the eternal farm. Like as long as FSN exists, as long as I choose to participate, I could keep running that farm. And you know, I've done something like that. I've been doing that for I think going on a couple years now. So I'm into, you know, 100 years or something, getting close to that on that farm, and we've been on 3 maps in that location. But those are more deliberate changes that happen, and so, you know, definitely staying busy there as well. But you know, the Misty Hills side of it is at least some variation. You know, got dairy farm at this point with some crops to be able to do to get straw and so forth as necessary to feed the cows, but still waiting on some things as we come out of the revamp there. So there's definitely some growing that needs to happen on that one as well. But anyway, that gives you where we're at with this and what the focus is. And I will keep working on this. Again, I'll be mowing today. I'll be collecting probably in the next couple days, and obviously fertilizing. So I'm sure there'll be another update at some point, another episode that comes out for the generational farming series in the next day or two that'll get you there. And then obviously we'll be back to mowing again sometime late summer or early fall. Just see when everything's ready. With that, I will wrap this one up, and I will see you next time.